This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I'm your host, Noah Taluki, and on today's episode, the Lions, with their first preseason game of the year, a 16-15 loss to the Buffalo Bills last Friday. We'll break that down for you and give my thoughts on that. Also, I did attend Lions training camp on Monday, my first since 2019, my first training camp since then, and I've been going for 12 years, so I'll let you know my thoughts on what I observed at training camp as well. Also, Miguel Cabrera chasing home run number 500. I'll give you my thoughts on that, and also my experience from my first Tiger game at Comerica Park in over 2 years on Sunday. But thanks again for tuning in. As always, folks, remember to download on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network all the other great content on there as well. But the Lions, we'll start things off with that, losing 16-15 to the Buffalo Bills on a preseason game, the first of the season. And I'll just say, was I expecting much from this team? No, I'm not expecting them to come out right out the gate and start showing, the opponents all their plays. No. I was not expecting much from this game. And, quite frankly, the offense didn't give me a whole lot either. And, you look at the first part of the game, obviously not much scoring, more of a defensive game for sure. But, when the starters were out there, I wanted to see this game for the starters. Jared Goff, I wanted to see what he could do with his receivers. And I think it's very obvious from the get-go with this team that it's going to be a lot of ball control. It's going to be a lot of running the football, and it's going to be a lot of short passes. This isn't a team that's going to be stretching the field like a team like the Kansas City Chiefs did, like the New Orleans Saints did with Drew Brees. This isn't going to be a team like that. They're not going to be throwing deep balls all over the place. I actually counted, so on the NFL, NFL.com, I should say, they have you can access these game books, and it kind of does a play-by-play for each play. Like, Jamal Williams runs up the middle for 2 yards, or Jared Goff passes short right for 4 yards, something like that. And I went back and counted. The Lions attempted 30 passes total in the game, and only 4 of them were considered deep passes. 4. Of all the 30 throws that the Lions quarterbacks threw, David Blau, Tim Boyle, Mr. August, as our friend Matt Derry calls him, and Jared Goff, 30 throws, only 4 were considered deep. 4. That speaks to, 26 of the 30 passes were considered short. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I mean, when you think about that, that's, like I said, very ball control. They're not making Jared Goff stretch down the field. And if that's what Anthony Lynn wants to do, and I'm all for that. I'm fine with that. Match Jared Goff's strengths. Match this team's strengths. What is the team's strength, especially on offense? The offensive line. If they can get the ball out quick, short throws, allowing for the offensive line to block in a certain amount of time, get those off, the checkdowns, the short routes, and especially establish the run game, we might see some development in this offense, which is key because this is probably going to be more of a developmental year for the Lions. Not many people are expecting a whole lot of wins. Now, are they the worst team in football? No. I believe the worst team in football is the Houston Texans. A couple other things from this game. Yeah. Oh, the classic, meeting the guy, meeting your teammate in the huddle during the preseason, one of the running backs for the Lions. Gosh, I can't remember his name, but he was signed the day before, and he scored a touchdown. He was actually the best running back for the Lions against the Bills. He scores a touchdown, and literally he was introducing himself to his teammates in the huddle because he was signed the night before. They got him over on Friday morning to suit up to play, and it was just kind of funny because that's how the preseason's like for some of these NFL teams. You sign these guys, and all of a sudden, and it's like a day before, and they don't even have time to meet their teammates. You got to meet them in the huddle. I think he said something like, yo, like, what's your name kind of thing, or something like that. I thought that was kind of funny. But more national media ripping on Dan Campbell during this game. And I'm here to say I'm not a fan of any of this, and I'll explain. So at the end of the game, the Lions were down 16-15. They gave up the long drive that Jake Fromm led, a couple deep balls, and they ended up kicking the field goal with, I think, like 15 seconds left, somewhere in there. So they're up 16-15, the Bills, and they kick off, Lions recover, all that. Then with 7 seconds left in the ball game, David Blau is out there at quarterback, and they're deep in their own territory. And he drops back to pass, he gets sacked, and there was a couple seconds left on the clock, but Dan Campbell said, you know what, I'm just going to run out the clock. I don't want to call a timeout. There's only going to be 3 seconds left, and we're way back in our own territory. Game's over. And, of course, Dan Campbell getting ripped on by the national media, telling him he needs to use better clock management in that situation. Michael Lombardi was a big catalyst of that, the former executive for under Bill Belichick and I believe an NFL general manager for the Cleveland Browns, I believe. And he's got his own podcast now, a gambling podcast, sports betting and all that. And he's talking about how Dan Campbell needs to do a better job of clock management. Okay. What did we hear? Well, the last 2 coaches for the Lions, Jim Caldwell and Matt Patricia, what was the theme with them? They couldn't manage the clock, right? This was all in the regular season. Mm-hmm. Dan Campbell is getting ripped for not managing the clock in the preseason. Now this gets me upset because, first of all, you want to develop your guys, right? You want to see what they have. Calling pass plays and going for it on 4th down, all that kind of stuff. You want to see what they have. It's the preseason. It doesn't count. It was the same sort of deal at the end of the game with David Blau. There's no reason to call a timeout there with 3 seconds left. If you're doing that in the regular season, all for it. Hey, if you do that against the Niners, go ahead, bash them. The Lions coaches, they've done that the last 2 coaches have been notorious for not being able to manage the clock. But don't be ripping Dan Campbell after preseason game number 1. And I understand he has a big target on his back because of the whole kneecap thing, and we're all over that in Detroit. The local media has not really put the logs on the fire, if you will, for that. It's the national media that keeps feeding this. And Michael Lombardi, a member of the national media, ripping Dan Campbell for his clock management in his first preseason game. Enough. I actually picked up a couple of old football coaching clinic books and scheme books and all that the other week. And I came across a book that talked about it was labeled how to properly manage the game clock, something with clock management, and it had a picture of Brett Favre laying on the ground calling a timeout, how to properly manage clock management or something like that. You think I should give that book to Dan Campbell? No, not after the first preseason game. This is ridiculous. Don't listen to any of the national media when they talk about Dan Campbell's, misuse of clock management. That's not right. It's the preseason. Come on, guys. Anyways, but overall, especially from the starters, I thought Jared Goff did look efficient. There were some nice catches that Tyrell Williams made. No TJ Hawkinson, no DeAndre Swift. They did not play in the game. So obviously a different dimension, a different look on the offense for the Lions. But I do have one more thing to say, though, before we get into some training camp business. I just found out, actually, as I was recording this podcast, the Lions are releasing Don Mulbach, long snapper, 18-year NFL veteran. His first season was in 2004. He was released by the Baltimore Ravens in training camp. The Lions signed him, and he's been with the team ever since. I mean, this guy is a legend, and he's 40, just turned 40 years old today, actually, on a Tuesday. And he gets the bad news that he is released by the Lions. This is a guy that is on the Lions' all-time team that was voted on a couple years ago. All-time team, and he's a long snapper. How about that? All-time team and a long snapper. That's not many people have that honor. Don Mulbach has meant a lot to this franchise. A guy that has, and I was thinking about this the other day, I think he's the only guy left on the team that would have played with Calvin Johnson, because I think the next closest tenured Lion now is Taylor Decker, I believe, 2016, because Matthew Stafford's gone. All those other, Golden Tate, Matt Prater, all those other guys that would have played with Calvin are gone. So I don't think anyone on this team has ever played with Calvin. So just something to think of. I was a little surprised, but Dan Campbell with a heavy heart. I could tell he was in the press conference. He was very emotional, and it was a tough decision for them to make. But he said it was time, and I know that Don Mulbach has been on these one-year contracts the last couple years. One-year contract, if he wants to play, he kind of, I was reading an article a long time ago about this, I remember. After the season, he decompresses for a few weeks, takes some time off, and then during that time off, he thinks about if he wants to come back or not. And so the Lions, they kind of honored that, and they said, all right, we'll give you these one-year deals. And at the end of the year, if you don't want to come back, you don't have to come back. This is a long snapper's job, right? This isn't like the quarterback or the running back or anything. So then they handled it like that. But Don Mulbach didn't have a choice here. He still is interested in playing football. And at an NFL team, you got to be consistent with long snappers. If you have one bad snap, you're cut. And the fact that the Lions have had a very, very consistent special teams game, especially in the long snapper department since Don Mulbach arrived in 2004, that's something to be proud of. That's something to hang your hat on high, if you will. And the fact that Don Mulbach was released by the Lions, very sad, but like Dan Campbell said, it was just time. 40 years old, how much longer can he last? And it was also tough because I was just telling my uncle this the other day, Dan Campbell goes from playing with Don Mulbach as a Lion for 3 years to now being his head coach and having to release him. Unbelievable. That's how long Don Mulbach has been around the Lions organization. But I just hope that he doesn't have any hard feelings against the Lions or anything. I'm sure he'll sign with another team because he has expressed interest. And, there's teams out there that are in need of a long snapper, relatively every year. So I don't think Don Mulbach will have a problem. Hopefully he won't have a problem finding a job. But he's meant a lot to this team, and a guy that has been beloved by many, many players throughout the franchise's history. I believe I saw he's played in the 37th most games in NFL history. Most in Lions history. Wow. Unbelievable. And we wish Don Mulbach the best of luck there, as hopefully he finds another job in the NFL. But just a quick shout out there that I just saw that as we were recording the podcast. All right, I do want to get to a little bit of my training camp experience. I was there on Monday watching the Lions practice. Same sort of deal when it comes to the passing plays. Very short passes, a lot of runs and short passes. They barely passed. They barely threw it long, and that included all the quarterbacks. Tim Boyle, I didn't notice him out there. The backup quarterback, he's vying for that number 2 spot with David Blau. I just noticed Blau and Goff out there. Also, DeAndre Swift was back out and practicing. I did not notice TJ out there either. But it was a good atmosphere. I mean, it was a Monday. It was a little bit raining during practice, but that didn't dampen anyone's mood or anything. And it was really, really exciting for me, especially to see the fans out there and being able to be around the team. because training camp for me, I've been going since 2010. That was my first season. I have not missed a season of training camp. Obviously, last year there was no training camp for fans, but I'm back now, and it was a lot of fun for me. You know, obviously they had their different corners of the games that fans can play and all that, but I just like being out there, standing around, watching practice, and it was really, really nice opportunity to be there. And I saw John McEnroe, host of the Doc and Jock podcast, and he does a great job with that. Also, his Sports Illustrated coverage, so he's there, credentialed and all that. So it was great to see him. And also, quick shout out to the Lions video crew as well. These are the guys, the filmers. These are the guys who film the plays, not the guys who are filming for DetroitLions.com. These are guys that are filming coaches' film. I was actually talking to a couple of them, and I was able to get the inside scoop on what they do, because if you guys have listened to this podcast before, I actually filmed for 3 years for John Carroll football team, the John Carroll Blue Streaks here in Cleveland. So I know all about the wide angle, the tight angle, the end zone angle, all that kind of stuff. So I was talking to some of them, and they have all this equipment there. I don't know if anyone's been out to Lions training camp. It kind of looks like a big security camera, and they sit in this little booth there, and they use a joystick to zoom in and zoom out and all that. So that was really, really cool to see, and it was really cool experience to talk about that, because these are filmers are people that don't really get a whole lot of recognition and love, if you will. So it was cool to talk with them and share my story and my experiences with them, and talking film, because that was something I was really, really passionate about when I was an undergrad at John Carroll. So just if you ever think of if you ever watch an NFL game, just make sure to think about those filmers that are filming for the teams, because those are the unsung heroes. As my good friend Ben Mraz, he was on the podcast last year, one of my other filmer friends who's related to Don Shula. We always went by our statement: great teams watch great film. So hopefully the Lions film is great, so that they can become a great team. We'll see about that. But that was always the statement that we lived by as filmers. So, but overall, great training camp experience. And like I said, noticed a lot of that the short passing. This is a team that's really going to set up, the short pass. They're hopefully going to set up the run as well. Hopefully, and cross my fingers, but hopefully they can establish the run early enough in the season, where then later in the season, once the receivers mature, once more chemistry is developed with Goff and some of the other guys, they can start opening it up more. They could start going play action, because then teams will respect the run. In the past, teams have never respected the Lions' run because the Lions haven't had a running game since Barry Sanders. So if you're watching the game like I was in the stands in the end zone in some of these games, you would see the defensive end there, with Stafford in the shotgun, faking the handoff. He never bit. Those defensive ends, outside linebackers, they never bit on the run because they didn't respect the run, because we didn't have a run game. The plan, hopefully, is that the Lions set up the run game and they have success with that massive offensive line that they have, and probably the strongest unit on the team, so that they can set up the run, have success with it, then later on go for the bomb. Hopefully that'll catch teams off guard. I'll have to see. But I don't think, hopefully not, the Lions won't be just throwing 4 deep passes out of 30 in a game. We shall see. More on that next week. More Lions, of course. We'll break down the Steelers game. They play the Steelers in Pittsburgh on Saturday. So that'll be awesome to break that down, hopefully. Hopefully the Lions win. We'll see. But, it's the preseason. It doesn't really matter. Looking just more for development. Guys that are on the bubble, to see how they develop as well. All right, a little bit of Tiger talk at the end here as we wrap up the podcast. Miguel Cabrera looking for home run number 500. As of this recording, he has not done so yet, but I did have tickets for Sunday's game, and with a couple friends of mine from Cleveland that were Indians fans that wanted to go to the game and all that. So that was fun to go with them. However, the game itself, not really fun, because the Tigers just completely got embarrassed by the Cleveland Indians 11-0. The game was pretty much over in the 3rd or 4th inning, and they scored all 11 runs in just 2 innings, the Indians. And they had a good game. I believe they won 6-4 on Saturday. I thought might have some energy there, but then all of a sudden, they started a AAA guy basically, and then Cleveland had Tristan Mckenzie on the mound. And from my experience, because right now I'm interning with the Akron Rubber Duck, the Lake County Captains, one of the minor league affiliates for the Indians. I know a lot about all these prospects for the Indians. Tristan Mckenzie a couple years ago was the number one prospect for Cleveland. Just a really tall, skinny guy. Not a lot of weight on there, but a guy that really struggled early on. A lot of up and down starts. One start would be pretty good, another start would be bad. But a guy that definitely, without a question, has a lot of talent. And this is a guy that really needs to start settling in for Cleveland, and he did against the Tigers. It was unbelievable. I wasn't expecting that kind of performance from him. Now, look, like I said, I know he was the number one prospect and all that, but to go out there and throw a perfect game into the eighth inning until Harold Castro broke it up with a single down the right field line, that's pretty incredible. He had 11 strikeouts. I could tell he was mad after that too. He wanted to get that. He wanted to go to the ninth inning and get that perfect game, but Harold Castro just decided, nuh-uh, that's not going to happen. So I think in that instance with him, I don't know if that has anything to do with skill, with the Tigers not being able to hit and all that stuff. I think in that instance, you just got to tip your cap. I don't think anyone saw that coming with Tristan Mckenzie. And remember, like I said, this is a guy with a lot of talent, a lot of upside, number one overall prospect in the Cleveland farm system for a reason. And you just got to tip your hat. Games like that happen. But it was cool to see all the fans in it for Miguel Cabrera. Because, for all the other guys that had at-bats, Scope, Grossman, all those other guys, everyone sat down. There wasn't a whole lot of buzz for their at-bats. As soon as Miguel Cabrera, as soon as the PA announcer announces, batting third, the designated hitter, Miguel Cabrera, everyone in Comerica stands up. They stood up. Everyone started cheering. Everyone's on the edge of their seats. You could see a lot of people with phones out. They were just waiting for him to get that home run. And unfortunately, it just did not come on over the weekend. Because remember, AJ Hinch sat Miguel Cabrera on Thursday when they played the Orioles on the road, mainly because I want Miguel Cabrera to get that home run with the hometown crowd. Hopefully, he'll do it against the Angels, but this is a town that is so starved for something great. And we talked about it with the Pistons a couple weeks ago when they got Cade Cunningham. People that have basically already adorned Cade as the savior of Detroit sports. We're looking for something as fans. The Tigers are playing decent as well. As a team, are they? They're below 500 still, but this is definitely the best Tigers team we've seen probably since 2016, at least in 5 years. Plus, there's a lot of, obviously Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, those guys got called up to AAA Toledo. That's a great sign. They'll probably end the year there. Hopefully, next season they'll be on the opening day roster. But a team with a lot of upside, and then they have Miguel Cabrera from the old days. He's like the last Tiger from the old days, from the early 2010s, winning the AL, going to the World Series, winning 4 straight division titles. And so kind of blending the old with the new, Miguel Cabrera is not the same player he was back in his prime when he was winning 2 MVPs in a row and a Triple Crown and all that. But from a milestone standpoint, it just shows that Detroit, if an athlete performs well for Detroit and Detroiters fall in love with that athlete, it's just very, very special to see, the love and support that they give to that athlete. And Miguel Cabrera is a guy that fans will give support to any day. Does he have his off-the-field problems? Of course. And I don't want to get into all that stuff, but what he does on the field is what's very, very important in Tigers fans' hearts. And the fact that They gave him those standing ovations every time he got up to bat. That's something special. I mean, I was getting goosebumps in the stands there. I mean, really, really cool to see. And like I said, kind of the blending of the old and the new. Hopefully when Torkelson and Green are up next year, hopefully, it could be a little bit of the passing of the torch, because Miggy's career obviously winding down, his contract about to be up, the last big contract from the old days. If you remember all those big signings, Verlander, Zimmerman, Prince Fielder, all those days are gone, except for Miguel Cabrera. He's the only one. So a representation of the older days, but really a good sign to see from all the fans that still love him. Hopefully against the Angels. It'd be nice if he did it against Shohei Ohtani. Really, really nice. That'd be crazy. I was thinking, what if he hit the home run against Tristan Mckenzie to break up his perfect game? That would have been even something crazier if that would have happened. But the game was well out of reach by that point anyways, and I don't know if it would have been as special. If it was a walk-off home run or something like that, fans might want to try to storm the field like they did in 1984 when the Tigers won the World Series against the Padres. It might be one of those things. But I really hope his home run is meaningful, meaningful in a game, really sparks the team, or that a walk-off or something like that. Not just a meaningless home run in a blowout game. That's for sure. Make sure to check out all the other content on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, Doc and Jock. And we mentioned John Macron earlier, does a great job with his Sports Illustrated Lions content. Also the wrestling podcast, the Michigan podcast. They do a great job covering Michigan football, and they talk a lot about college football in general as well. The Fan Report, they're doing a great job over there. A lot of Pistons talk as well with them. A lot of great content, and I'm really, really fortunate and blessed to be able to be a part of this network for a year and 2 months now. So episode 59 here, we're still going. I have not missed a episode since my first one back in June of 2020, and I love doing this every week, and hopefully we'll be getting some more guests on. I know the podcast is always better with some guests, the former players, Lions, writers, any of those people. I know it definitely makes it for some good listens. So hopefully I'll be giving you guys some good listens to listen to later on. Hopefully in the next month or so. But thanks again, folks, for tuning in, and make sure to join us next week only on Open Mic Night.